Amazon wants to deliver your petabytes in a giant truck. Comma.ai is open sourcing Tesla's autopilot. The Gooligans want your Play Store reviews. And gun versus eagle versus quadcopter. All that and a whole lot more coming up on Tech News Today.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today, episode 1651, recorded Wednesday, November 30th, 2016.
Welcome to Tech News Today. This is a show where we talk about everything you need to know about technology today. And I like to call us the fire and brimstone of tech news.
It's true. You do like to call us that.
I do.
Morning, noon, and night. And I still don't understand which one I am or why you keep calling us that. Are we that on fire? Or?
Well, fire and brimstone. That's something different than being on fire, right?
That's true. I suppose that's true.
I'm actually Megan Maroney.
And I'm Jason Howell. Definitely not brimstone or fire. Feeling a little, a little punchy today.
Well, that's fire and brimstone, right?
Okay,
We're going
right.
to preach.
So
We're going to preach this tech news.
All right, let's do it. Actually, I'm really excited about this story because, man, I feel like I've been waiting a really long time for this to happen. Netflix made a lot of subscribers happy today with the news that it's bringing offline playback capability to most movies and TV shows on the service. One big omission is Disney content, so, don't expect to store Zootopia on your iOS or your Android device. Content that is available for storing offline, many of which includes Netflix's own original content, will be denoted with an available for download tab. Once those apps have updated, everyone will start seeing those, and you can do this. I mean, I've done this at least a few different times when we've gone on a flight or gone on a trip or whatever with Amazon's service. You've been able to do this with much of Amazon's Prime streaming content for a while, and it's really great for when you're going on a trip.
So it's available on all plans. You don't have to pay extra for it. They're not trying to upsell you, which is nice. You mentioned Disney, but there's not much Disney content really available for streaming on Netflix anyway. The free streaming. So that's, I guess that isn't necessarily.
But it's kind of content that a lot of people looks for,
right.
Like has, Disney as a brand has kind of an inherent value, I think, in certain families and stuff. So
absolutely.
For that. And that's where I actually found this really useful is, loading up like a tablet on the Amazon service with content for my kids so that no one else on the airplane has to deal with 5 hours of a screaming kid. Instead, give them the content. Right. So I would imagine that the Disney kind of lack of the Disney would at least make some people a little bummed out.
Oh, yeah. Well, when I look at like my iTunes movie library, it's all Disney or Pixar. Like it's all Pixar. It's all like every Star Wars, Disney, and, just the most recent Pixar movies. And that's because you have to buy them. Like they don't make deals. Like Disney doesn't make deals with Netflix or Hulu or any of them really. I guess maybe they have deals with Hulu because they have ABC content, which is part of Disney. But yeah, so for this, you just update the app and you're ready, but it has to be the app. You can't do it on your laptop. You can't, you can obviously watch Netflix in your browser, but you can't download. And we were discussing this earlier. I think that's probably, because they want to prevent people from sharing this content, keeping the files on their computer. I guess presumably your computer would have more space. So you'd say like, I'm downloading everything and keeping it and, using whatever ripper you have to save it. Because I think that's what Netflix was afraid of.
Potentially it could be something along those lines. Although, if it's storing offline on your mobile device, that's still a possibility. That is a file that exists on the file system somewhere, and someone who really wanted to could probably pull that off and maybe do something with it. I don't know what the DRM is that's being used here in that regard. So I don't know if it necessarily protects them entirely, but maybe that's just having it on a desktop or a laptop computer is one step closer to being able to do that. So it's very possible. Did you find out, and I didn't find this anywhere, any sort of like time limit for how long it stays stored? Because I know with Amazon Prime Video,
48 hours or something.
Yeah, once you start playing it, you have a time limit. But I think you also kind of have a time limit that it stays on your hardware like 30 days or whatever before like first kicking off that playback. I could be wrong on that, but I know they do afterwards.
I didn't see any time limit. But I mean, I think they're really doing this for people because their excuse before was like, well, everybody has Wi-Fi, but everybody does not have Wi-Fi that's fast enough to stream Stranger Things. And I think everyone in the world should get to watch Stranger Things.
And they will, effective now.
Yes. Well, why transfer your data through the cloud when Amazon will drive it to its destination in a giant truck? Today, the company announced the AWS snowmobile. That's an 18-wheeler capable of securely delivering petabytes or exabytes of data. The truck will pull up to the front of your business with its 45-foot shipping container. You load up all your data, and then they'll drive it to their cloud, which is not actually a big fluffy cloud in the sky. Sorry to break it to you. And in case you're interested, an exabyte is a quintillion bytes. That is a lot of bytes.
That's a lot of bytes.
So Amazon made a lot of announcements today. We're going to talk about this. The most interesting thing about this one is really that they chose to describe it with a bunch of pictures of Lego people. Not sure why.
You know, because their market is kids who play with Legos, obviously, for this type of data transfer.
Kids have centillions and centillions of bytes they need to securely transport. It is really just Amazon saying, like, hey, like, we want to store you. We want you to pay us to store all of your stuff. And if we need to send you a big giant truck to get it from you to us, we'll do it. Because sometimes you can't. I mean, sometimes there's just not enough speed for as many bytes or gigabytes or petabytes or floppy bytes or all the bytes.
Quintillion bytes. So then, in this case, contrary to Senator Ted Stevens, data really is a big truck. Traveling through a series of tubes. Finally, we understand what Senator Ted Stevens was talking about. It's actually the case here. Amazon actually had a bunch of announcements. One thing that I thought was interesting today is that they announced the Amazon AI platform that they're opening up for developers outside of the company to utilize. Amazon showed off 3 tools to start off with. One's called Recognition, for image recognition of objects and scenes. They say down to the breed of a dog, for example, and we've seen, you know, definitely in the case of Google Photos, for example, you get that kind of, level of detail in how the computer is able to pick apart and recognize what's inside of these images. So Amazon's claiming the same thing here as a tool for developers. Also, Amazon Polly for text-to-speech. And they are featuring 47 male and female voices, 24 different languages. Again, a great tool for developers. And then Lex for Alexa services to create like chatbot, multi-step conversational things for developers.
And I should say that Keith in our chat room is actuallying me, which I appreciate always. It's not petabytes, like as in like, you know, PETA,
like PETA.
The ethical treatment of animals, people for the ethical, like bytes. No. Petabytes.
Okay.
Petabytes.
All right.
I want to know what a petabyte is.
That's when you take a bite of the pita bread.
Okay.
Obviously. Comma.ai, the self-driving startup founded by George Hotz, Geo Hotz, you may know him by. You remember them. They withdrew from the U.S. market upon receiving a NHTSA special order last month. Well, now they have a new plan. The Comma Neo is an open source robotics research platform aimed at makers who want to convert their own vehicles into self-driving cars. So it's kind of similar to what they were doing, but maybe a little bit more empowered on the actual maker, person that wants to try and tackle it themselves. The hardware and software is available on GitHub, and the guide reveals that the system is actually running off of a OnePlus 3 Android smartphone for, quote, easy development using Linux and Android as the platform of choice. The cost of all the required hardware to build this, including that's like a 3D printed model that you can print out and everything, runs $700. And basically, it replaces the rear view mirror in your car. So you take the rear view mirror out, you slide that in, and the camera on the OnePlus 3 is what's being used to analyze the road and all of the different, the changing conditions, lane assignment, all that kind of stuff, cars, and send those signals to the rest of the car.
So do we think this is just another way for Geo Hotz to avoid the regulations of self-driving cars?
It sounds like that is the case, because he says, in my reading, it sounds like what he was saying is like those NHTSA requirements only really apply if we have a consumer product that we're trying to get out in the market, but this is really kind of open sourcing this. And so putting, the control in the hands of people who just want to kind of jump into it and see what they can do with all this.
Right. Because
I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but it is what it is.
I'm going to say it's a bad thing. I'm going to say yeah, you guys and your Linux machines, I love you. And you play around with it and, you figure out and it's possibly safer, it's possibly better, possibly, but possibly not. And I don't know. I mean, I think that I would like to see more rather than less regulations when you're talking about self-driving cars. So, yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know enough about the law to know whether if a maker, an individual who isn't selling a product, isn't just literally is working on their own vehicle to turn it into self-driving, if they have some sort of inherent capability of just going out on the road. I don't think so. Burke, that's a great word for this. Liability. What is the liability for? I mean, it sounds like what George Hotz is saying in this move is that it absolves comma of that liability. Does that then fall in the hands of the person who's putting this together? Is there any law on the book that actually restricts someone from putting this together, installing it on their Acura or Honda Civic, and just using it? I have to imagine there must be. Well, or maybe it doesn't exist yet.
That's the thing. Like these laws, I mean, that's what we talked about with the auto self-driving truck. Like there were laws in the books that said that you have to have a person in the cab of the truck, a self-driving truck. And they broke all those laws knowingly because they knew there was no punishment for the breaking the laws. Like the laws were there, but there was no punishment. So that's how Otto got, this 18-wheeler barreling down the freeway in Nevada and then
like it or not.
Yeah, and then was sold to Uber. So I don't know. I mean, I also think this story is one about Elon Musk versus George Hotz because, I mean, Elon Musk is such a renegade and he broke a bunch of rules and now he's the old guy. And George Hotz is like, hey, I like your autopilot. I'm going to open source it. And basically they have this ongoing feud and this is part of that too. And it's just like when, it's like a, Gates and Jobs sort of thing. It's like, it's like an age-old story where you just feel like George Hotz is focusing as much on getting self-driving cars on the road as he is on just like sticking it to Elon Musk for some reason.
Yeah, and just kind of shining a spotlight on himself and his work because he's definitely a very like dazzly kind of guy. I think he really enjoys kind of being in the spotlight when it comes to this kind of stuff. Just watch an interview and you'll realize he enjoys being in that interview and being the focus of it. I mean, Hotz has said that only Tesla Autopilot is more advanced than the Comma.ai platform. I'm not sure that I buy it, barring any actual, experience with the hardware and comparing them side by side. But I have to imagine Google, with its hordes of teams that they've been working years on this kind of stuff, probably has something that's as good, if not better, than Comma.ai. But I suppose I don't actually know that for sure, but just a hunch. And I guess the commercialization aspect of this, George Hotz says, would come with deals with aftermarket equipment makers to possibly, bring Neo into these aftermarket systems. And I suppose that means Comma wouldn't be doing that, and that would be the difference. Somebody else would have to deal with it, with all of the NHTSA stuff.
It's true.
That pesky NHTSA stuff.
Well, I feel like it would do us good to like go back in history and look at like Henry Ford and like what happened when cars were going on the road. Like were they breaking rules left and right in order to get what we have today?
Right.
If anyone is an expert at automotive history, especially the beginning, email us at tnt@twit.tv. Because we probably should look at the history before we,
For sure.
Maybe it worked in the past and it'll work today.
4
Yes.
7 minutes ago.
Security researchers say that more than 1 million accounts have been breached by Gooligan, a family of Android malware designed to infect your device and steal authentication tokens to access Google Play, your Gmail, Google Photos, Google Docs, G Suite, Google Drive, and more. Now, if you have the latest version of Android or a fairly new Android phone, you're probably okay. But whatever operating system you're using, it's important to be careful when you download third-party apps. That's apparently how people get the Gooligan. It's
Gooligan.
Known vulnerabilities in devices running Android 4 through 5, including Jelly Bean, KitKat, and Lollipop.
That's 74% of Android devices currently. That's a lot. Actually, a lot of Android devices. They did note in this research that it's not necessarily they're stealing the authentication tokens, yes, but they're not necessarily using it to access data. What this is more than anything is an ad scheme, like a way of stealing that authentication to authorize a Google account. They send that to a remote server. That in turn forces a user to download select apps in the scheme, and then allows them to place reviews on these apps and drive up the reviews process.
So, but I mean, if you had access to people's docs and their Gmail and their photos, it seems like there could be something more lucrative that you could do with it besides just write a review of your app.
Yeah, well, I mean, they basically, the researchers that found this and have been diving into it have said that there is no evidence that suggests that anybody's data has actually been being accessed. They're purely doing this for the authentication code so that they can force a download. I mean, ultimately what it does is it also roots the device, so that creates, this kind of capability for remote control of the device. But what it seems to be really all about right now anyways is getting that download, because once you get that download, forcing that download on a device and then leaving a fake automated 5-star review for it, that drives that up. And, they can make, I think they said the scheme is making them as much as $320,000 a month as a result of it. But I mean, as is always the case in these sort of things, like they always sound really bad and everything. And don't get me wrong, if you end up getting infected with something like this, you would want to know, and there are ways to check into that. I'll tell you in a second. But really what it boils down to is don't get your apps from places that aren't legitimate. That's always ends up being the case here. You visited a bad website, or you've downloaded, let's say, an app. A lot of people who are like pirating games or whatever, they're downloading from third-party sites these APKs and just trusting the fact that they're clean. And time again, we realize they're not.
Right. So what you're saying is like they've just automated this. So rather than like someone going, "Ooh, I've got your Gmail. Let me see if you sent anyone your social security number," or let me, then it's like a robot that goes in there. Zoop, 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 zoop,
that's what it sounds like.
Yeah,
that's what it sounds like it's doing. It's captured, all of these devices, and then it's basically turning them into download machines for these apps in the official Play Store. But that's not where it all started. But that in turn drives up the ratings, drives up the installs, and in many ways makes a lot of money for the people who are behind it.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So, yeah, there you go. Also, Google-related news, G Suite, which is Google's rebranded apps suite for business, is introducing a new app development tool called App Maker that allows an organization to create custom apps tailored to their specific needs in a seemingly easy, I haven't used it myself, drag-and-drop browser-based platform. Google has built more than 300 of its own apps internally using this system, and apparently they've spent the last year really getting it ready to open it up for other enterprise users outside of the company. Really reminds me there used to be, or there still is, it now belongs to MIT, but Google back in the day had created an app kind of production suite called Android App Inventor, and then MIT kind of took it over, and so they have it now. Kind of a similar thing where it brings more people into the app development process. Maybe in the enterprise, you have this very specific thing that an app would make easier, but you don't want to, go through the long iteration process, the high cost of, going through a third-party kind of app developer to create this for you. You can use this system and it actually can get pretty complex based on a lot of what it supports.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Because, I mean, anyone who's worked in an office environment knows there's those situations. Like for us, it's like booking guests. Like we book guests on this show. Leo books guests on, his show. And we don't want to all ask, we're all sending an email to the same person and trying to get them, asking them to come on 10 shows in one day. And so like we just say, we struggle. Like, does Slack work for this?
What's the best platform?
Like, do we send
this?
emails?
Yeah.
Do we have a whiteboard? Like, and it just seems like, you hit your head and you just think there's got to be some solution that someone already created. Like, we're not the only network that books guests. Like, there's got to be something, but there's some like specific. So it's like if you have something like this where you can just create an app, you can do it.
To kind of manage all of the entry processes and whatever. It can be as simple as something like populating a spreadsheet. looping in Google Maps maybe if there's map data, or it can get pretty complex SQL databases, scripting, jQuery, Google Analytics. Also supports a bunch of third-party APIs that'll kind of broaden the intelligence of the apps in different ways. And material design, which is a big kind of emphasis for Google in the past couple of years, is kind of at the core of this. So you can make it look really nice in the process. And I don't know, just really kind of create custom apps tailored to a specific need that your business has. It's a really cool system.
I would create an app that would go into people's Gmail and take their tokens. And
don't do that. Don't do that. I would recommend against that. We'll end up talking about that on an upcoming show. Don't do that.
No, but yeah, I wouldn't do that.
Okay, good. Phew. I was worried.
So we got some feedback. Bike More sent us an email. That's, get on your bike more, drive less, I guess. Sent us an email regarding yesterday's Uber story, saying Uber is obviously a transportation company. If they were a technology company, simply connecting walking folks with a few bucks and a need to get somewhere quickly with driving folks headed the same direction and willing to share a seat, the riders and drivers would be paying Uber a small fee for their services, but not Uber charging riders and paying drivers. Even more simply, the moment they started taking responsibility for the rider's safety, they became a transportation company.
That's a good point.
If they just want to be a technified cork board connecting folks, they shouldn't be involved in any regulations or fair pricing or driver payroll. Yeah, I mean, I believe that they know this very well. Like, they have very smart people. Like, they have lobbyists. They have, they have a lot of people that are working for them that understand that it's a messy place that they're in, and the idea is that in the future they won't be in such a messy place because it really will just be a platform of cars that drive themselves and pick people up, and there will be no employees as drivers.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, they're going to do what's best for their bottom line as a company. Like you said, there's a lot of smart people that work at companies like Uber or obviously Facebook that know, that understand the blurry line between being a platform versus being a publisher. They get it. And I'm kind of convinced to a certain degree that they probably, in their heart of hearts, would believe something that's counter to what they end up saying publicly. But is that in the best interest of the company? Is that going to drive, is that the best way from a business perspective to press forward and run your business in a successful way and make more money, or whatever what the goal is, doesn't always necessarily line up that way. So you do what affects your bottom line probably more than anything else.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I don't know, that just kind of feels icky.
Yeah, and then, we made this comparison yesterday as, Uber wants everyone to think they're just a platform, and Facebook wants everyone to think that they're just a platform. And, I toss off like, okay, well, there'll be self-driving cars, like all those cab drivers will not have jobs. Like, I kind of toss it off like it's not a big deal because I've never been a cab driver before. But, if I think of the, taking that metaphor to the same level with Facebook, like autonomous cars, then there's just autonomous articles, and then I start to,
There's
like
truth to that
gets
actually.
me in my heart, and that's because that's what I'm a kind of journalist, and so like that makes sense, and I just like I need to remember that it matters sometimes more personally when you're the one that does that job.
Sure.
So yeah, I apologize if I've been flippant about anyone losing their job, because the idea that articles or podcasts or anything like creative like that would be made autonomously is terribly frightening to me.
Yeah, and I mean, we do this show, kind of a little tangent that I think we're on right now, but that's okay. We do this show, because it's our job, A, but B, because we're fans of technology. So it can be very easy when you talk about some of these things to kind of fall into, that point of being entranced by it because we're fans of technology, and isn't it cool that technology can do all these cool things, and not seeing that other side. Sometimes it's easy to forget that. So always appreciate the reminders there as well. TNT's fan of the day is Frank Brunk on Instagram, who shared this video saying, "Watch, no hands, and I get to listen to Tech News Today while making breakfast." And you turn the audio up on this one. That's okay.
Here's the latest news from Tech News Today at 7:26.
He basically said play Tech News Today on his Google Home. And what do you know? There we are on your internet appliance, right at the top of the stairway, which kind of frightens me a little bit. Don't knock it over, because it will meet its untimely demise.
But then
up there.
But if you're downstairs and you want to shout at it, maybe that's the total center of the house.
Yeah, that could be. And maybe Frank doesn't have children. I just see that thing falling really quickly.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing because you probably have your hands are covered in butter.
I know.
And then,
That's the best thing in the world when you're cooking or when you're doing dishes and you have that thing just waiting for you to say, play this thing. So thanks for sending that in. Show us how you watch or listen to TNT. You can just record a video or take a picture of yourself or your setup. Post it on Instagram, Google+, Twitter, or Facebook and use the hashtag HowIWatchTNT and we'll find it.
And finally, we have not one, but 3 quadcopter stories for you tonight. The first is a familiar tale, but one that I never tire of. Popular Science has a video of an Australian wedge-tailed eagle attacking a drone and sending it to its untimely death. Oh. The drone's death, not the eagle's death.
Okay, good.
So, whoa, that is fast. So this is becoming quite a common occurrence. These particular eagles are highly territorial. And the best thing about all the eagle attacking drone stories are that there's video of the whole thing and you get to see it. And it is awesome. So yeah, so there's a lot of eagles in Australia and there's a lot of drones in Australia, quadcopters.
Here it comes. I see it in the distance. It's coming for you.
Yeah.
And it survives. Look at the camera. It survives. That's impressive.
Yeah, they use quadcopters to protect or to survey gold mines, in Australia. And they've had a lot of problems with the drones the eagles taking down the drones. So I think if they could figure out how to make the eagles just survey and keep people
wear
out
cameras.
Yeah.
No big deal.
Right.
Come on, eagle. Can't you just wear this camera? You're flying anyways.
Yeah. Plus
Work for me.
Right, exactly. Right, because those eagles are losing their jobs, and that's not something to laugh at.
Exactly. Who needs an eagle to take down our drones? Check out this massive drone rifle. It's called the Drone Shield. It weighs 13 pounds. Looks like a beast. It can jam the radio and GPS signal frequency of a drone from up to 1.2 miles away. This actually allows the operator to either send the drone home or land it at their own request. Request in air quotes, because when you're firing a rifle, a signal rifle at something, that's a little more than a request. FCC regulations say it can only be sold to federal agencies. It'll likely be used to steer drones away from protected airspace, among many other applications as far as that's concerned. But man, it's big.
Right. So we're not all allowed to jam up signals. That's
If everyone had one of these things, I don't know. I don't know if I like that world. But I don't know. Maybe people hate drones enough to warrant having one of these. It should be noted also that drones use public radio frequencies. So not only would this work to jam the drones, but it could also jam other things, the internet routers, remote-controlled toy cars. You could take over that toy car when it drives by you, and a whole lot of other things, although it's not very subtle when you do that.
Well, I would like to have a gun that changes the channel on the TV, like when you're at a sports bar or something and you just switch it.
You could just ask them.
Huh. Never thought of that. Well, thanks to David Everington for sending us this last link for Direct Line. It's a personal drone that will light your way in the dark. So it flies above you as you're walking home in dangerous areas. It's like a little guardian angel there.
Like a UFO.
And yeah, David pointed out the important question, wondering if these drones actually make the person more vulnerable than they would be without the drone.
That's what I wonder, because when you watch, they kind of set it up with this woman who works at a bar and she closes up late at night and she's really not, she's really kind of scared of the dark and walking home is a little frightful. And so then it shows her like walking out in the middle of darkness with like 5 light drones hovering over her. So it's like if you wanted to call attention to yourself, that's one way to do it. I don't know if that makes you more or less safe. Also, when you've got that much light shining down on you and you're in the middle of it and it's pitch black outside, doesn't it make the darkness even more dark so you actually don't see beyond your little lit space? Mm-hmm. I don't know. Yeah, there you go. I guess it's one drone lighting the way, so that's not as bad as like 5 drones hovering over.
Plus,
still.
Plus, what about the eagles Huh?
Yeah, you don't want that thing coming down on you when you're halfway through your walk at home, going home. Then you've got no light. Yeah, and then of course there's this one where the guy is driving and he wants extra light on the road, which apparently it employs 4 or 5 flying drones to light up the road so he can see down. That's what they have brights for. Brights work really well in the car for that. It doesn't require any drones.
Right.
So I mean, we're just shooting holes through this.
Yeah.
This whole thing right here.
Yeah, I mean, Eric Duckman says carry a flashlight, but then like somebody could take your flashlight. They can't. I mean, unless they're an eagle, they can't grab your drone out of the sky.
That's true.
I don't know if we'll see these anytime soon, but I sure do like laughing about it.
It's light as a service. LAS. There you go. Yeah, I don't know if we'll see this anytime soon, but it exists. There you go. Fleet lights. That is it for this week. We got a little bit of a short episode. I hope you understand, but I think we talked about a decent amount of tech news today. TNT records live every Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, 11 p.m. UTC at twit.tv/live. You can always be part of the show by emailing us at tnt@twit.tv. Of course, you can leave us a short voicemail, although you really never do. But if you want to, it's 260-TNT-SHOW, and I bet you I get one now. And you can also hit us up on Twitter. We're at Tech News Today TV.
And it is that time of the year again. We are working on our best of episodes for the shows this year. Please visit twit.tv/best of to submit your favorite moment of 2016. Just fill out a very short form with the show name, the episode number, and the time code if you have it. I want to thank Doug Jones, who submitted a clip for us from Monday's show. And we are not doing a best of for Tech News today. We're doing we're doing like the year's greatest topics, and they're going to be brand new shows. So we'll play that best of now, and we'll just play the video and not the audio because what it is, it's from yesterday. Where we figured out what an AI version of Tech News Today would look like.
Yeah, it was actually Monday. It was Monday. Brian animated us to show us what it would be like if we were replaced by neural networks, which is right around the corner. I mean, spitting distance, we're about to be replaced by neural networks on this show. I don't have any confirmation of that, like official word of that, but I just have a hunch.
Okay, so how am I going to pay for my kids to go to college again?
Well, that's the beauty. That's the beauty of it. We'll still get paid.
Oh, universal basic income.
Yes,
right,
exactly. Exactly. You can find all the ways to subscribe to our show at twit.tv/TNT. And if you want to tweet at Megan.
I met Megan Maroney.
There we go. Sorry, and I'm at Jason Howell. Thanks to our technical director, Kara Cole, always for helping out. Thanks to Burke for helping out as well. And thanks for the word. Not only the words on the screen, but the word on the paper that you helped me with. Thanks to Kevin for editing and making us look good. And thanks to you for talking tech with us today. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Bye, everybody. Yeah.